Welcome back to Morning Scramble. We're going to talk about a different kind of fighting now. It's kind of like a more emotional, mental infighting, shall we say. We're going to talk about codependency with Mary Dion. She has written a book called What Does Love Have to Do with It? And it's not quite the Tina Turner song, because this is far, far more in-depth. Mary, first of all, welcome to Morning Scramble. You've said that over a 40-year period, you unintentionally wrote 58 books in the form of diaries, notebooks, and journals. Tell us about those.
Well, I always wanted to write a book from the time I was a little girl, and the nuns in school told me I couldn't write. And to be fair to the nuns, when I got to college, they said I couldn't write either. But I always had this burning desire to do it, and so after my second divorce, I realized I had written I had this tub full of journals that I had written. And so I thought, you know, wow, as I was thumbing through, I mean, everything went back to the whole emotion of it. And I thought, this is my book. And so I started writing it.
Now, you've said that when you turned 50, you found a writing coach who coaxed stories out of you that even you didn't want to tell yourself.
I did not want to tell them, no. I didn't want to tell the family secrets. You know, there's such my father was an alcoholic, and there's such this thing, you know, cloak of silence around the family, because we never want to tell how bad things are.
You have a great phrase for that. You describe the tough parts of that as, quote, coughing up hairballs.
Yes.
Anybody who's owned a cat knows what you're talking about.
They were hard.
Explain that.
Well, these stories were really hard to tell. I didn't want to tell them. But my writing coach told me if I'm not laughing and crying when I'm, you know, writing these stories, then the reader won't either. So
I would imagine your readers will be doing a little bit of both, correct?
Correct. It's rather humorous, but there's a lot of tragic things.
Have you received any feedback from readers saying, you know what, you walked me through what I went through?
Yes. You don't know how many times. I mean, people would Facebook me and say, you told my story.
And I always ask this on my radio show of authors. Is this your first book?
Yes.
Your first published book? In the course of writing the book, how often did you find yourself so filled with ideas that kept flowing that you had to keep up with them?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I would wake up at 3 in the morning, and I could not get back to sleep. You've had that from other writers?
Well, yeah. As a matter of fact, that leads to my next question. When you went to sleep, did you have a tape recorder or a notepad next to the bed?
No, I had to get out of bed. I had to write the story, and it would be like a burning, nagging thing until I would write that actual story.
Now, how tough was it for you, one, to conquer your family secrets, and two, to publish them?
Oh, it was really the worst. I was so worried. And I had friends read the book, and they go, it's okay, it's okay. You know, I had a lot of support as far as finally putting it out there. And my older sister was extremely mean to me. And when I let her read the book, she goes, yeah, that's me. So it was really interesting. And everybody wanted to be who they were, except the first husband. I changed his name.
Well, and do you think you married the wrong men?
You know, I had to do it. They were just like Dad. I swore I would never marry a guy like Dad.
Sure.
But what do you do? It's comfortable.
And you know, and that follows what a psychologist once told me was following one's script.
Yes.
You keep repeating the same errors over and over again until you learn from them. Does that sound familiar?
Yes, and it's like Carl Jung said, until you bring these things to, you know, the light of day, you keep repeating them as fate. We think it's fate.
And in your book, you also talk about your struggle in pulling away from what you were taught in Catholic school. What was that about?
That was hard. You know, I always felt like I had a connection to God early on, and I think that's because of the way my mom was. But when I got to Catholic school, the things that they were saying, they didn't gel. They didn't feel right. And so I had a hard time, but the Catholic Church is huge. It's got a hold on you, you know, for a very long time. Do you have experience with that?
Not with the Catholic Church, but I grew up in a neighborhood where a lot of other people did.
Yeah.
And as they grew up, they either bonded to it or separated, one of the two.
Yeah.
So I have to ask you, the subtitle of your book is A Memoir of Codependency. How do you define codependency?
Well, in a simple way, if a codependent is going down in an airplane, somebody else's life would flash before their eyes. We lose ourselves, you know, with this focus on this other person, whether it be an alcoholic addict, someone even with a mental illness, someone who has control over us. And so we lose ourselves. And all of our focus is on helping them, which can turn to obsession and control and all those other things that are painful.
So how do you break that pattern, and how do you start yourself back toward a happier life?
Well, the biggest thing is to honor yourself And that's what I do. I have different programs that I work with my clients with. And the first thing I do is have them really start looking at how they're giving themselves away. Because once we start honoring ourselves, then other people start treating us better. It's amazing. And then I have them sit down and do what would they like for their dream life, what they want to do as a little girl. Did they want to sing? Did they, have dreams of different things? And how can we incorporate those in your life now and move toward it? But then the blocks come up. And all the old beliefs. I can't do that, like I can't write, or all these things come in, but I've got all these great techniques and tools that help people through that. And then the magic part starts. They get in touch with their intuition when all this stuff is gone, and they live their dream life. It's magical.
I was told by a business trainer several years ago that breaking a good habit is just as tough as breaking a bad habit. And he taught us the importance of establishing good habits and doing them every day for at least 21 days.
Yes.
At that point, they become a habit and hard to break. How tough was it for you to look at your past, figure this can't continue, I've got to make a break?
It's really hard because we think that these traits are part of our personality. And it's great to be a caretaker and be helping people and all these wonderful things. They're good traits to have. But these aren't a part of our personality. They're actually habits, like you've talked about, that can be broken. And so once you really start looking at them, you find out what is theirs to take care of and what is yours. And we overdo, we take care of everything for them, and then we create this monster, and then we're going, what the heck?
In the course of writing all these very, very personal recollections and memories, how often did you contact the people who shared these things with you, or did you contact people and say, I'd like to talk about what we shared? Did you have to do that?
No. I had it all in my journals, and in my journals I was spilling all my guts emotionally, so the emotional story was pretty much there. Of course, I talked to my good friend about it all the way through because she was there for it.
So family and close friends, anybody whose experiences you mentioned in the book, how do they feel about seeing that on pages?
Well, everybody was fine with it, except for, when my son said something to his father and that he didn't look very good in my book. He wasn't happy, but...
Now, you've also said, too, that Sigmund Freud said we are only as healthy as the secrets we keep.
Yes.
That's a pretty loaded statement. Describe that.
It is, because think about how much energy it takes when you're keeping a secret. Like the family secrets. Oh my God, don't act this way or that way. And out in the business world, I was always in sales and marketing. I never wanted them to know what I was doing at home. The guys that worked for me would have never understood what I was doing at home. And so you try to hold on to that secret so nobody finds out, but then you got to bring the idiot to a company party and you're going, oh God, and so it takes so much energy to hide them. And when you put them all out there, it's such a freeing experience. I recommend it to anybody.
When you said you were in sales and marketing, a little light bulb just popped up above my head. You may have seen it go on, actually. Because when I was taking sales training years ago, the very first day, we were told sales and marketing is basically human psychology 101.
It is.
How has your background in sales and marketing helped you put this book together?
Well, that's interesting because it's really hard to sell and market yourself. I've sold other things and marketed other things, but it's so personal. But as far as putting the book together, yeah, because it is the psychology part. And it's probably why I stayed in the relationships too long, just trying to make them work, with everything that I knew.
Another question I always ask authors, how many rejection letters did you get from publishers before getting your book published?
Actually, I self-published it because in the 90s I started writing a book about detachment, and I got 6 rejection letters. So I decided, I can't write.
But you prove them wrong. So
did.
Someone who comes to you and says, I want to write a book, what's the first advice you give them?
I would say start making bubbles, like have a chapter or a part of your life right there in the middle, and then make little bubbles, all the other stories that come off of them. Get all that stuff on paper out of your head, and then take one at a time and start writing.
Now, you also have podcasts on iTunes, is that correct? Tell us about that.
I have 30 podcasts now on iTunes that are free, and they're all little snippets, anywhere from 5 minutes to 20-some minutes, about all the codependency things.
And how can people get your book?
Amazon, and it comes in Kindle, and it comes in hardback, paperback, and soon to be in audio.
How does it feel to look on Amazon and see comments about your book?
Oh, it was gratifying. It just is so great. Yeah, especially, really, I've used a lot of those quotes in the marketing.
The author is Mary Dion. The book is What Does Love Have to Do with It? We'll be back with more coming up in just a moment. This is brought to you by the Hassayampa Inn. Stay tuned for more on Morning Scramble on AZTV.